Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Questions. First question, what is the standard of performing Sandhya Arati, Narasimha Arati, etc. in the temple? Is Vaishnava dress compulsory? What are the standards and rules for singing? Could the Sunday feast program be an exception in some of the rules? Well, this needs a book to answer. Standards, there are so many standards, so many rules are given. Please instruct her to sit with, not with the back to Srila Prabhupada. There's so many standards, so many things. What is to be done, what is not to be done. Narasimha Arati is performed where there are deities of Narasimha. Otherwise, we don't have Narasimha Arati. We have in ISKCON, we have in Mayapur, we have in, what's that, Simhachalam, what do they call it? There's New Simhachalam or something like that. In Germany, we have Jandelsbrunn, Navajaya Nrsimha Kshetra, sometimes called Simhachalam. Are there any other Nrsimha temples? No, in anywhere in ISKCON. In Krasnodar, they have Nrsimha deities. Yoga Nrsimha. So generally we don't have Nrsimha deities. Where there are Nrsimha deities, we have Nrsimha Arati. Often I hear devotees say when we're singing these prayers, Namaste, Narasimhaya, etc., they call it Nrsimha Arati. But unless Arati is offered, it's not an Arati. Right? It's something specific. You can call an apple an orange if you like, but it doesn't make it an apple. So there's so many standards. Is Vaishnava dress compulsory? For attending, no. For offering, well, try going to Mayapur and proposing offering arati in jeans and t-shirts. It would seem ludicrous. There is a philosophy, or if you want to call it, going around that Vaishnava dress is not important. But then, where did the idea of Westerners wearing Vaishnava dress come from? Where did it come from? It came along with Srila Prabhupada, didn't it? If he didn't think it was important, he would have said, well, he did sometimes say that I have no objection if my disciples, in the early days, he said, I have no objection if they wear neat Western dress, dressed like a gentleman, but that was never the standard for temple programs, even to attend the temple programs. And what to speak of offering the arati. It's unimaginable in Srila Prabhupada. Actually, even, anyway, it's a surprising question. How could you even think of not wearing Vaishnava dress for offering arati? There's a reason for that. Why do we offer arati anyway? Why do we do anything in Krishna consciousness? It's all for the pleasure of the Lord, is it not? And for the pleasure of the Lord and His devotees. And there is such a thing in the language of Bhaktivinoda Thakur as Gaura Bhakata Priyavesha, the kind of dressing style that is dear to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. And that's the standard dress that Srila Prabhupada brought to the Western world. He didn't insist that everyone always had to wear it, but it was always standard for initiated devotees at temple programs, especially those who are living in the temple. And for offering arati, it's unimaginable to have anything else. Even in India now, most of the men wear most of the time wear Western style clothing, but it's still, in the temples they have to wear dhoti if they're offering arati. Some years ago in Dwarka, I was in one temple, Samudra Narayana, at the confluence of the Gomti River with the sea. And the pujari there was in t-shirt and pants. And I said to him, what is this? Why are you wearing like this? And I saw also one time in Goa, someone was wearing like that. But that should not become the standard. Srila Prabhupada wanted to bring in a cultural revolution. What are the standards and rules for singing? There's so many. It's too much to have in a short questions and answers session. That's supposed to be the subject of my next major book. Well, we're working on it, the Vaishnava Culture, Etiquette and Behavior book, which is going to be bigger than this. You want to open that up? That's just to show you that I'm not just sitting around twiddling my thumbs. This is the result of the last so many years' work. So, this mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada, so that took, I'm not sure exactly how many years, more than 10 years of working on it. So there are 3 volumes like this, total more than 2,000 pages. Yeah, so it's a lot of work in research and organizing. So the next book, it's going to be bigger than this, Vaishnava Culture, Etiquette and Behavior, taking on this in some detail. There is some propaganda that all these rules are not important, but then why did Rupa Goswami give them? Why are they there? If they're not important, then why are they there in the first place? If you're a Paramahamsa, they may not be important. So, all the Paramahamsas here can let us know, and we'll arrange to wash your feet daily. But if you're not a Paramahamsa, then it's very dangerous to think you are a Paramahamsa or to act on that platform. Could the Sunday feast program be an exception in some of the rules? Well, for people coming, for guests, we don't try to impose so many rules on them. The devotees themselves should follow. If there's a Mataji Sangha and one Mataji attends it with her husband, is it a transgression of Vaishnava etiquette? Well, if it's a Mataji Sangha, it's meant for Matajis, isn't it? And generally it will be for the Matajis alone, and why should the husband attend? They also need some space of their own sometimes, isn't it? That's why you have it. Otherwise, if the men start coming, then the whole purpose is lost. And they need to express themselves among themselves. Sometimes they may have to say things which they may not, among themselves, they may express things among themselves which they might not want to do in the company of men. It's a common thing I see in Baroda, our temple in Baroda in Gujarat in India. Every afternoon a group of local housewives come and they have their own little satsanga. They're not our ISKCON devotees. They come together and they sing some bhajans. But it would seem very strange if any man was to get involved in that. So sometimes they want to get together, let them get together. Don't give a little freedom to them. Dear Maharaj, could you please describe in brief the techniques of book distribution? What Srila Prabhupada meant by learning the art of book distribution. Do we need to use certain psychological tools of direct sales like open questions, flattery, etc.? How to present the books in such a way that Srila Prabhupada would be pleased? There was a discussion about this between Srila Prabhupada and some of his book distributor disciples. You can find there's a recording and a transcript of that, in which the main technique is to chant 16 rounds and hear and chant well, and then Krishna will give all intelligence. That's the main technique. And psychological tools, this, that, then Krishna will give the intelligence. How to do. How to present the books in such a way that Srila Prabhupada will be pleased. On another occasion, as he often did when Srila Prabhupada was talking about how to preach in general, Srila Prabhupada quoted this verse, Dante nitaya turnakang padayo nipatya kritvacha kakushata metata hambravimi he sadhava sakala eva vihaya durat Gauranga Chandra Charane Kurutanu Ragaha. This verse from Caitanya-caritamrta, Srila Prabhupada quoted. How to preach, preaching method. You approach someone and you flatter them like anything. That you're a great personality, you're so wonderful. And then you say, when you've got his attention and he's feeling that, yes, at least there's one person in the world who properly understands me. When you've caught his attention and he's feeling ingratiated to you, then you say, as Srila Prabhupada translated, you give up all your hogwash nonsense ideas and just surrender at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. So that was the preaching technique that Srila Prabhupada often recommended. You can flatter someone to get their attention, and then you tell them they're a nonsense and they should surrender to Lord Chaitanya. And he said that for book distribution also. How to present the books in such a way that Srila Prabhupada would be pleased. In one letter, Srila Prabhupada wrote that if we just if we just tell people about how good these books are, just praise the books, then the books in themselves are so good, you praise them in such a way that people would be inclined to take the books. Vaishnava Prabhu, who's now the ISKCON Minister of Book Distribution, he used to go out, and this was in the 1970s, he'd go up in the airports in America. In those days it was mostly business people traveling. It was pretty hard-headed kind of people, the business community, because in those days there weren't cheap flights and only the people with more money would fly around. So he would walk up to, one of his favorite lines when he'd walk up to people was, "All glories to the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya, which destroys all the dirty things accumulated." He would say that, he'd walk up to people and say that. He sold many books. So different people have their own techniques. I was surprised when I was first trying to distribute books in England. I was just new in the movement. And I was thinking you have to really pressure people and make a big show. And then I saw Prabha Vishnu Das Brahmachari at the time. He would just talk very quietly to people. And he sold so many books. In America, one of the biggest book distributors for many years has been Paramananda Prabhu. I saw him once, and he's just just he stops people, and he talks to them. I saw him, and we were doing Harinam in San Diego, in Southern California. We went out. Is it Friday night they go out or Saturday night? Saturday night. Friday night they go out. Yeah. And he was doing book distribution on the side, and I saw he just all these people enjoying, just completely in more maya than usual, and or just the prospect. Now we're going to enjoy, and he would, you see, he'd stop people and talk to them, and you could see they were just taken in by a completely different kind of mood. He was very serious and intense. I don't know what he said to them because I wasn't listening, I was chanting. But then they'd take books. So different people have different ways of doing it. Krishna gives the intelligence. Mahotsaha, Prabhu, I know, he deals with Indians and Westerners very differently. With Indians, he's often very intense and pushing them like anything, and sells lots of sets of books to them, which you couldn't do with Westerners, because Indians, even the meat-eating, alcohol-bibbing Indians in the West, they still have Hindus. And generally when we say Indians, we think of Hindus. Of course, there are a lot of Indians who are not Hindus. But generally in Hindu culture, they have some respect for sadhus, and they can take it if to some extent if you get on their case and push them to do things. That culture is still there. It's just like with your father or your uncle. You just expect to be chastised and told what to do, and you just take it. I don't know if that culture's in this part of the world. I think not. Anyway, that's again a very big topic. The main practice for distributing books is to chant our rounds very nicely and pray to Krishna. And there are some practical considerations also. Where to go, choosing good spots. In America, there's some famous good spots. There's the Grand Canyon tourist spot, and His Holiness Ganapati Swami spends the whole summer there, every summer, just puts a book table. The airports are usually very good. Of course, you go to some rinky-dink little airport with hardly any passengers, then it wouldn't be so good. But major airports, they're often very good. That doesn't apply in Georgia or Czech Republic. I think in Georgia most of the flights seem to come in at night. You hear them. I came in at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you hear them early in the morning, the planes. They're finding in America also very good for book distribution is to go to college campuses. And Srila Prabhupada also very much wanted that books be distributed to the college professors and the students. Again, big topics. You want to add something to that, Sankirtan Prabhu? You've done so many years of book distribution. What's your technique?
I was taught the technique, just pray to Krishna. I was taught in the beginnings that you pray to Krishna, good sadhana, and just try.
Yeah. One important thing is it's actually essential for book distribution, is to go out. What's the first thing you have to do? You have to go out, because it's not just thinking about it, you actually have to go out there. We hear sometimes devotees say, well, I didn't go out, I didn't feel like it. You have to be out there. Many years ago, one godbrother of mine, I heard him say, he was from Germany, and he said that they were traveling, and one morning it was all snowing everywhere, and they didn't feel very enthused. There were hardly any people around, and they thought, well, maybe you'll just take a day off. And then they heard the hydraulic drill, and some people are out there working in the cold, and they thought, well, if they can go out to work, we can go out to work also. And they went and distributed so many books. One of my best book distribution experiences going way back, again in the 1970s, was again in snow. So much snow, just all day, it was just falling so heavily that you'd just be standing there, and then you'd see someone just when they're about 3 meters away from you. So you'd see someone, but there were people moving around all day, and we actually did a record number of Back to Godhead magazines. There weren't many people out, but everyone, somehow they stopped, and it actually came in Back to Godhead magazine that on that day we distributed a record number of books, and the whole town population is only 10,000. And it was snowing, but we did so many. Krishna gives intelligence. My question is regarding relationships between devotees. Why are there disagreements, and how to surpass them? This is the great question of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is the age of quarrel. Anyone has the answer, you can get a Nobel Peace Prize. They give the Nobel Peace Prizes, but the wars still go on. Conflict is part of material existence, and especially in this Kali Yuga. As long as I can remember, there's always been a conflict. Of course, it's not always, because the country called Israel didn't exist, but since I was born and was cognizant enough of the news, there's been conflict between Israel and Palestine. And there's always peace endeavors and diplomatic talks, and it goes on. Sometimes the situation gets bad, and right now it's the worst it's ever been. Despite all the endeavors for diplomatic solutions and this and that, what's the solution? Anyone know the solution? Israel, Palestine? Why is there no solution? There's a fundamental difference in outlook between what the extremists on one side think and what the extremists on the other side think. And what the extremists on one side think is completely unacceptable even to the normal people on the other side, and vice versa. So there's no solution. What is the solution? Everyone should recognize we're all part and parcel of Krishna, and chant Hare Krishna, and join our Krishna conscious movement, in which there's no conflict or disagreement, right? Well, we wish it was true. Relationship between devotees. Why are there disagreements? Disagreements can arise. We're just talking human psychology here more than anything particularly spiritual. Disagreements arise it can be over philosophical issues. It can be over how to best serve Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said that such disagreements are spiritual. When we all agree that we have to serve Krishna, but how should we do so? For instance, if we have so many devotees, and should we push book distribution more, or should we push prasadam distribution more, or should we push Harinam Sankirtan more, or should we try to have a balance of them all? There may be disagreements. In some country, close to this country, at the present time, in some part of the country, the local authorities are cracking down on devotees going out in the streets and chanting Hare Krishna. How should we respond? Maybe we should do more Harinam. That's what Srila Prabhupada recommended for Australia. When devotees were getting arrested for chanting Hare Krishna, Prabhupada said, just go on chanting anyway. They arrest you, you chant in the jail. And eventually they'll stop trying to, they'll give up. And it happened. But that might not be the case in every country, in a country where you're arrested for doing Harinam, they may beat you severely or put you in prison for quite a long time. It's quite possible in the particular country I'm referring to, which I think most of you are familiar with that country. But there may be different approaches among devotees. No, let's do Harinam anyway and depend on Krishna. And others may say, well, at this time we have to adjust and don't do Harinam and go along with the authorities. So there may be disagreements on how to serve Krishna, and Srila Prabhupada said that such disagreements are spiritual, but they still may be sources of much discord in Vaishnava society. That's also a major topic in my upcoming Vaishnava culture, etiquette and behavior book, about discord among devotees and how to respond to that. And another factor is egoism. It may be that even our disagreements are on how to serve Krishna, but then we want to force our position, or we may resort to political processes, diplomacy, duplicity. And it may be we've seen so many times that it's not spiritual at all. There may be, it's quite common that devotees in some position of authority, they start to act in a demeaning, condescending, or exploitive way, or even a cruel way toward the devotees who they see as their subordinates. So that can be there also. How to overcome them? You'll have to see the particular disagreement. It may not be. There may be disagreements which go on and it just leads to a chasm or a schism. We have in the Ramanuja Sampradaya a schism happened several hundred years ago, and there's no sign of it ever being bridged. Srila Prabhupada said, I'm very afraid of this crack. That's discussed in this book also, Srila Prabhupada, how he dealt with factionalism, schismatism, conflict. A lot of Srila Prabhupada's energy, and a lot of energy of many of the leaders of our movement goes into trying to solve disagreements among devotees. And sometimes you can spend hours and days and weeks and still there's no progress. Something like Israel and Palestine. There might be some little progress for some time, but there's no permanent solution. So what is the answer to all of this? We may have to live with, as far as possible, we try to keep our own consciousness pure in such a situation. If we find that we just can't relate to some devotees at all, then we may want to keep our distance from them. And practically that's happened in many places, that many devotees, they don't frequent the temples. They prefer not to. They find it's better for their Krishna consciousness not to go to the temple, which shouldn't be like that, but they find it like that because they find such an unwelcoming atmosphere in the temple. Usually on Janmashtami, just coming up, we find devotees who come around, the once-a-year devotees, or they come for Rath Yatra. Rath Yatra, many come also, but the rest of the time they may not come. But that also becomes difficult because we need association of devotees also, and temples give service opportunities. So it may be a dilemma that devotees who stay away from the temples, they may become weak, or they may form their own little sub-communities among themselves who meet in each other's houses. That's going on. In England, I know for sure, there's so many groups of devotees. And also they may be living in some town where there's no official ISKCON center, so they just get together by themselves, officially or unofficially. As far as possible, we should try to see the good qualities in devotees, but it may be that we find it too difficult to live with someone or associate with them very thickly and deeply. But if we can't associate with anyone, then there's probably a problem with ourselves, isn't there? Okay, there's a little discussion of that. It could be a long, long discussion. Just like I was saying, sometimes leaders, they may spend long time trying to sort out issues, and then there's no real progress. And some devotees, they're just unreasonable, actually. They have unrealistic expectations. How to form the fundamental desire to go on preaching strongly the process of devotional service. Reading Srila Prabhupada's books. If you feel then you become inspired by that and you want to communicate that to others. That's the short, simple answer. May not be any need for any long answer. In the story of Raghava Pandit, he walked 30 kilometers to get coconut. Or he sent his servants a long distance to get the best kind of coconuts. Once his servant touched the coconut to the ceiling. Not exactly. He touched his hand to the top of the door frame and then touched the coconut. And Raghava Pandit thought that so many people walk in and out here, and the dust from their feet goes up to the ceiling, and touching the ceiling, touching the coconut is contaminated, throw them away. what are the standards of cleanliness that we should follow? I don't follow this. That was his personal standard. Again, this topic, cleanliness in Vedic culture, Vaishnava culture, Brahminical culture, that's another major topic in the upcoming book on Vaishnava culture, etiquette and behavior, which, as I say, is my next major writing project coming up. Hopefully in a few years we should be able to publish that. Basic standards of well, that's another thing, asking about offering arati in kami clothes, but we're supposed to offer arati after bathing, and we should have cloth which has been washed and dried. But then kami clothes, you see people, they wear the same jeans for how many days? They don't change every time you... It's impractical, isn't it? So then jeans you wear, maybe sometimes people wear for weeks without washing them. So this kind of cloth is very practical for washing and drying. It dries quite quickly. A question from a young unmarried Mataji. I've been aspiring to take your shelter for a fairly long time to get initiated and strictly follow all the regulations, but I realize that I am quite weak yet, and it is very difficult to practice without offline and association and proper guidance, as I spend quite a lot of time alone with my mind. Could you please give a general instruction for me and those in a similar situation? Well, first of all, congratulations for so sincerely practicing in a situation which is far from the ideal. Young unmarried Mataji, general advice is become a young married Mataji. If you can find a sane husband, and presuming you're somewhat sane yourself, it shouldn't be impossible. And yeah, you find a husband who can help you, can help each other in advancing in devotional service. There's a suggestion for overcoming that. Should one take bath before sleep if one gets contaminated? No, it doesn't seem to make sense. Because again you become immediately contaminated, isn't it? Gets contaminated means, I guess, passing stool, which normally in Indian culture people are habituated from childhood to pass when you rise instead of not just before you go to sleep. But if it does happen, then anyway you're going to go to sleep, then take a bath, and then again you go to sleep. I would say no. I and other non-initiated devotees cook breakfast in our brahmachari ashram. The lunch is cooked by brahmanas. What to do in this situation? Not to take such a breakfast and to quit such a service, or to accept the reality. Generally, we wouldn't have non-initiated devotees cooking, but if they're following all the principles, they can cook, and it can be. But what is the problem? Who asked this question? What is the problem? Oh, well, that's not mentioned. Deity cooking has to be done by initiated brahmanas. That's something different. But no one cares anymore, because after all, the deities are just some statue, right? No one cares. I wouldn't even stay in such a situation where they have deities and they don't want to serve them properly. I wouldn't stay at all. But then where are you going to stay? Any ashram in Russia, any place in Russia where they have strict rule that only brahmanas do the deity service? That was the rule given by Srila Prabhupada, but nowadays we don't care. It's a lamentable situation. Srila Prabhupada, he said, "There's my one great anxiety that we've installed so many deities and then they won't be looked after." And we go on installing more and more deities. And even from the beginning, they don't have this standard. No one cares for a standard at all. Okay, that's the questions. And it's what time's the arti? 6:30. Okay. Hare Krishna. आरती 6 6:30 आरती होगी. आप क्या पंजाब के हैं? गुजरात. कौन सा जाएगा गुजरात में? जामनगर. मैं कभी कभी वहाँ जाता हूँ, लेकिन काठियावाड़ी भाषा नहीं जानता हूँ. परसों जन्माष्टमी है. आप आएंगे? जी हाँ. Hare Krishna. Any other question? Verbal question? Other way? Yeah, okay.
Харе Кришна. Спасибо за ответ на вопрос, Махарадж. Мне такой вопрос. Вот сейчас очень развивается искусственный интеллект, и люди думают... думают, искусственным интеллектом создадут Бога и очень верят к этому. Они создадут Бога.
Not going off.
So some people are afraid that now artificial intelligence is being developed, and some people say that we will create God. And Srila Prabhupada was very expert in utilizing everything in the spirit of Yukta Vairagya and Krishna's service, even when he was gifted with a Grundig recorder. Dictaphone, recorder. To make faster his producing of books, his books. How can we use artificial intelligence in the spirit of Yukta Vairagya to attract more people to Krishna consciousness?
The idea of creating God by artificial intelligence. I can quote one Bengali saying that Srila Prabhupada sometimes quoted. Chagale ki na khai, pagale ki na bale. What is there that a goat will not eat? What is there that a madman will not say? Can we use artificial intelligence? You're probably already using it. You may not even know. It's pervading every aspect of our lives. It's not so much a question of can we use it, but practically we have to accept it in our lives. Unless we go and live on the land and just chant Hare Krishna and live without electricity. And then using artificial intelligence, our position will be mapped from space. And so on. It's coming in. It's unavoidable. So if we're going to live in modern society, then just like we use motor cars and electricity, we're going to have to, because that's the way the world is going. It's already being used by the North European BBT to help in translating Srila Prabhupada's books. Not as a final draft, but to give some outline, which can then be refined by non-artificial intelligence. Recently, I got a letter from a Russian devotee, and it was being read to me in English. And I commented, "Oh, this devotee knows English surprisingly well for a Russian." And at the end of the letter said, "I'm using artificial intelligence to translate this." So it became so good that I thought it's good English. So that's one aspect, and it's going to impact pretty much every sphere of our lives. You're using that for in so many ways, right? Already, Rishikesh here Prabhu is using in his. He started 2 years ago using artificial intelligence for. One thing is, nowadays you select possible titles for my talks using artificial intelligence, and then it comes up with a whole bunch of possibilities, and I select one, or I may adjust it also. And for transcribing lectures, I was surprised. He undertook several thousand of my lectures. He told me, "Well, we're going to have it all transcribed." I said, "Well, that's a huge job." And then within a couple of months it was done. It took us a year and a half to. Oh yeah, and then there's this whole knowledge base. He'll make a presentation. It's cutting edge technology for my transcripts of my lectures. In all kinds of functions he's developed using artificial intelligence. So it's going on, can be used, will be used.
Nowadays, artificial intelligence are being used for creating images of Krishna, some pictures, and sometimes artificial intelligence creates very strange pictures of Krishna. And can it be used? Is it normal?
Well, again, the human element has always to be there.
Человеческий фактор должен присутствовать всегда в этом.
Human intelligence also creates sometimes very strange pictures of Krishna, and we have to discriminate. Ultimately, it takes a human to discriminate. Although, if artificial intelligence is trained by a human, could possibly do that also. What is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. One thing is, artificial intelligence will never have consciousness in the sense that humans have. It can never be real intelligence in the sense of consciousness. The old analogy is that you can have a light sensor, and when red light shines on it, it reacts by saying, "I see a red light." But we know that the machine it reacts in the same way that a human might, by saying, "I see red light." But there's no conscious experience within the machine of seeing a red light. So it may be that artificial intelligence can in many ways act as if it is intelligence, and already being programmed for psychotherapy, some basic psychotherapy. It may become more sophisticated even. That's pretty sophisticated to answer, to interact with people on that level. But it will never be, can never actually have any feelings of empathy. People think, oh, I'm making friends, or this. I feel I have a very, very empathetic personality, but it's not a personality, and it's not empathetic, because there's no consciousness, there's no feeling. It's an imitation. Anything else? Any questions from the ladies? 2 questions. Okay, ask one at a time.
Presented 2 books, and then first line we have to glorify the person to whom we distribute. Then second part we have to say that you whatever you have, it's nonsense. It's maybe second part we should not apply.
It's a suggestion or a guideline. It's not to be applied mechanically. Yeah.
Second question is that you mentioned it about terrorists, and between them there is no any solution in material platform. And you speak that if we understand that we are souls, then there is no more conflict, right? And my question is, because the people have some anarthas in the heart, they could not acknowledge, they have no knowledge about the soul. They have belief following the anarthas, and could not come to any peace. Then we, how we can say.
If you can't formulate the question in English, say it in Russian.
In case if you want to solve some conflict between materialists and devotees, or even between devotees, you said that between materialistic people, it's impossible to solve problems on materialistic platform. But if we understand that both parties are souls, then conflict can be solved. So if the other party doesn't understand, doesn't recognize that they are souls, but we recognize, can we uplift them on spiritual platform?
If you can uplift them to the spiritual platform, then our job is done.
Если вы можете поднять их на духовную
That's
платформу,
the whole mission. But it's not such an easy thing. In Vedic culture, if there's any dispute, then well, there are different levels. We hear that Sanatana Goswami, among the Brajbasis at the time, if there was any dispute, they'd bring to him, he'd listen, and then he'd give the judgment, and everyone would accept. And that's still going on. Recently, maybe 2 years ago, I visited Dharmastalam, which is a holy place in South India, where the main sadhu, one of the things he does is he sits down every day, and people come, they bring their marital problems, or among 2 families there may be some dispute. He listens to both sides, and he just says, okay, do like this. And before they go to him, it's already accepted. Whatever he says, they'll accept. And he listens very fairly and gives a solution, and they're all ready to accept. And then you avoid years of bitter struggle, you avoid court cases. So that's a very good system, if people are prepared to accept it. They have faith in the elder who is wise and not biased toward anyone, and wants the benefit of all the parties. So that makes things very simple, if that culture is there. What do you do in your community, Sankirtan Prabhu? You don't have a lot of disputes, or do you? You must have some disputes. Some I mean, it's not.
Some disputes.
It's not Shangri-La. It's not.
Yeah. I mean, if those people don't have basic faith or acceptance of my authority or Sabyasachi Prabhu's authority, then it's difficult to solve. But if there is common acceptance, then it's solvable, because we all want good for the community, so they can understand it.
That's an important point in Vaishnava society or any broader society, that if we're thinking that it's not just what I want, but we have to see for the greater good of the whole society. What I want is not necessarily what should be, because I am a member of the broader society, and what I want shouldn't be my priority. I should accept what is best for the whole community. That way of thinking is, then we have a good platform for solving problems. But it's when it's just about me and what I want, and I don't give a damn about anyone else, then it becomes very difficult. And it's an attitude also. Basic attitude. Ayam nija paro veti ganana laghu chetasa. Then, what's the next line? Ganana laghu chetasa. Udara charitam. What's the next line? Udara charitam. 2, is it? And then the famous line, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Someone of very restricted consciousness just thinks in terms of me and mine and versus others. But someone of very broad consciousness thinks of the whole world as his family. Udara charitanam tu vasudhaiva kutumbakam. So it's a question of consciousness also. But there's demoniac consciousness, and that's prominent in the present age. Then it becomes impossible, and then it comes down to might makes right. Anything else?
Two written letter questions. What is the proper way for a Mataji to seek for spiritual guidance from a male grihastha, if he has good knowledge of Shastra and I trust his opinion?
From her husband. Husband is the male grihastha she should seek guidance from.
Next question. Why did Indra suffer from Vishwarupa's punishment if he followed
from what
Dharma?
Punishment? Which punishment?
Vishwarupa's punishment.
Ah.
If he followed Dharma and Vishwarupa did not.
You mean Vishwarupa wasn't following Dharma by drinking wine? How is that? How is he following Dharma by killing Vishwarupa?
It said that
killing a brahmana is always sinful. What is even if you take the property of a brahmana is very sinful. Yeah. Okay. Then Hare Krishna. Yeah. I just wanted to look at it myself. I'm still a bit surprised that it's published at last. I've hardly seen it since it's been published. It was printed in India while I was in America. So you're going to translate this into Russian? Artificial intelligence? It's a big job.
I was asked by one senior devotee from Russia to ask this question. We know that in traditional cultures such as Islam or Christianity, women cover their body. But in our Vaishnava tradition, we see that often women have open belly.
That's not traditional culture.
Это не является традиционной культурой.
That's Bollywood culture.
Это культура Болливуда. How it was in Srila Prabhupada's time? How it was in Srila Prabhupada's times?
Not Bollywood. Srila Prabhupada is trying to give us the highest culture
There are different opinions on the subject of Vedic cosmology, how it is described in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Some devotees say that our earth is flat, others say it's round, and some devotees say that we have never been in the moon, other devotees say we were. So what is your opinion on this subject?
My opinion is I shouldn't have much of an opinion because it's a very complex technical subject which would require much study to understand, and it's not essential for me to understand it for our Krishna conscious advancement. We accept statements in Shastra. We may not understand them. For that matter, how many people understand what the scientists say, either? I don't know if even the scientists understand what they're saying. It contradicts each other so much. So basically we accept what's in Shastra, that's our basic principle, but understanding it exactly, how can we understand? Even Shukdev Goswami says that even Lord Brahma, who is the creator, he doesn't fully understand it. Keshava tua jagat vichitra, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. Keshava, your universe is amazing, variegated. About going to the moon, Srila Prabhupada said different things. Mostly he was that they hadn't been. Somebody said they may have been somewhere. But he said they couldn't go to the moon because the moon is a heavenly planet and you can't go there by mechanical means. Okay, Hare Krishna, we'll finish then. And that's one more question. A few more minutes. Okay, you can ask her.
Nowadays, in our variegated devotional society, often devotees refer to the opinion of their own gurus on different subjects, and they say, "My guru said like this, my guru said like that." Is it proper? Is it healthy situation in our society? Should it be like that?
It seems inevitable because there are different people and different people have different outlooks on different issues. Shastra is the center. So if someone says something which is not in line with Shastra, then we shouldn't accept, even if they're supposed to be a guru. Of course, understanding Shastra can be challenging, which is why we have gurus to help us understand the message of Shastra. On some questions, just like, well, one major thing is eating chocolate, which is now almost universal in ISKCON. But why? How does it enhance our Krishna consciousness? Why do we eat chocolate? Because it's not to serve Krishna, it's because we like it for our tongue. So there are different opinions on this, and I say, don't. And you'll say, well, I'll find a guru who likes chocolate. So okay, but it's sense gratification. It's not for serving Krishna. It's not that I'm craving to eat chocolate and that's because I'm serving Krishna better. So it becomes an obstacle in our devotional advancement. If in doubt, don't in such matters. You can go back to Godhead without eating chocolate. Maybe you can by eating chocolate also, although I doubt it because Krishna says that you have to offer what He wants, which means food prepared and offered with love. But if we buy chocolate from a shop, it's not that we're prepared by devotees with love for Krishna. So it becomes an obstacle in our devotional advancement. We say thing is a small thing. But then Srila Prabhupada, he prescribed even drinking of tea, which it's not a very major sin, drinking tea, but it's to be given up if we're to strictly follow the Vaishnava principles, because it's for sense gratification. It's not dovetailable in Krishna consciousness, because Krishna doesn't drink tea. If you're going to eat chocolate, then you drink tea also. Why not? And coffee. And then, then there's something in America. I've never seen it, but I've heard of it. It seems to be quite popular. Devotees call it near beer. It's beer with the alcohol taken out. And devotees drink it. But why? What for? It's only for the pleasure of the tongue. And therefore we say, Sharira vidyajal jardendriya tahe kal jibe file vishaya sagare, etc. You know it very well. Okay, my watch says 6:27. That also says. It's a bit early. 6:25 by internet time. Is it? Mine says 6:27. So the tongue is the path to hell. It drags us, it keeps us in material existence. But Krishna has given us prasad so we can conquer over the voracious tongue. So we should take prasad. And tea, coffee, near beer, chocolate, it's not part of Krishna's diet. So leave it out. You won't die by not eating chocolate. So that's my argument. What's the argument for eating chocolate? Anyone? You say, well, Srila Prabhupada sometimes ate it. When it was given to Srila Prabhupada, sometimes he took it and he liked it. But the last, Hari Shari Prabhu said that the last time this question was brought to Srila Prabhupada, and he's taught it has some intoxication in it. And then Srila Prabhupada said, no, then don't take it. When he was informed it has some intoxication. And then some people say, well, it's only a very mild intoxication, blah, 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 blah. Well, apart from that, chocolate is processed by killing so many bugs, and most of the chocolate in the world is produced by child slave labor. So from that consideration also, shouldn't be taken. But if you like, you can take it. I'm not going to go around whipping you on the back. That you'll get life after life anyway, if you don't want to surrender to Krishna. Okay, we'll finish there. And Gaurangera Arotik Shobha Jagajana Manaloba.